Before America could win the Second World War, it first had to survive it. In the vast, unforgiving Pacific, victory wasn't earned in trenches or bombed-out cities. It was earned on steel decks, thousands of miles from home, with nothing but ocean in every direction. Young sailors faced torpedoes from unseen submarines, bombers diving out of the clouds, and the sudden, terrifying strikes of kamikaze pilots. This is the story of that war, told through 7 U.S. Navy ships that became legends. Ships that weren't just machines. They were homes, shields, and the last hope for the men aboard them. Some fought through firestorms no ship should have survived. Others went down with their guns still firing into the dark. But all of them helped turn a desperate defense into a relentless advance. From the first bold attacks on Japan to the brutal night battles where ships were nothing but ghostly silhouettes in the blackness, these vessels carried the burden of the Pacific War. Their crews forged a fleet that refused to back down. This is the story of 7 American warships that simply refused to lose. Some ships make history. Only one became a myth. They called her the Big E. The Japanese called her the Gray Ghost because no matter how many times they claimed her destruction, she always returned. USS Enterprise was everywhere the war demanded her to be: Pearl Harbor, Midway, Guadalcanal, the Eastern Solomons. When other carriers limped home disabled, Enterprise fought on, patched together by determination more than steel. Her defining moment came at Midway. Facing Japan's undefeated carrier force, her pilots lifted off into a sky filled with danger. In 5 extraordinary minutes, her dive bombers found and struck Kaga, Akagi, and Soryu, turning the tide of the entire war before the ocean spray settled. A sailor later recalled, "We weren't thinking about history. We just knew. If we didn't stop them here, they'd never stop." Bombs, torpedoes, fires. Enterprise took them all and came back stronger every time. She wasn't just a ship. She was the Pacific's iron heartbeat. World War II ended in a single place, the teak deck of USS Missouri. On September 2, 1945, Japanese envoys stood beneath her giant guns and signed the surrender papers. But before that moment shaped the world, Missouri carved her reputation in fire and thunder. Her 16-inch guns shattered bunkers on Iwo Jima and Okinawa. She shielded carriers from relentless kamikaze attacks, once taking a direct hit and staying in the fight as if nothing had happened. What made Missouri special wasn't just power, it was speed. She could keep up with fast carrier groups, something almost no battleship could do. Admirals chose her as their flagship, not for prestige, but because she was the one ship they trusted completely. Veterans on her deck during the surrender described an eerie silence. No celebration, no cheers. Only the weight of a long and terrible war coming to its end. Mighty Mo became the ship where the world finally exhaled. The Navy didn't need a repair. It needed a miracle, and the USS Yorktown delivered it. Crippled at the Coral Sea, she needed 3 months of repairs. Admiral Nimitz gave the shipyard 3 days. More than 1,400 workers swarmed her decks without rest. When Yorktown sailed for Midway, she was still leaking oil, but she was alive enough to fight. In battle, she took bombs and torpedoes that would have collapsed lesser ships. Fires ripped through her decks. The hull twisted. Yet the crew refused to surrender. Pilots launched into the flames. Damage control teams fought as if the ship herself depended on their breath. "We didn't know if the deck would still be there when we came back," one pilot said. "But we trusted the crew." Yorktown sank. But she sank buying the time the U.S. needed to destroy Japan's carriers and change the war. She didn't just fall, she fulfilled her purpose. Destroyers rarely made headlines, but they did the war's hardest work, and none earned more respect than USS Fletcher. Fast, agile, and built like a fighter, she hunted submarines, screened carriers, shelled enemy shores, rescued pilots, and fought in the pitch-black chaos of the Solomon Islands. She was in almost every major campaign, from Guadalcanal to Okinawa. Sailors trusted her like no other. Under fire, she handled like a dream. In heavy seas, she stayed steady. One veteran said, "If the fleet had a heartbeat, it lived in the Fletcher class." Her radar made her lethal at night. While Japanese cruisers fired blindly into darkness, Fletcher struck with precision. By the end of the war, 175 Fletcher-class destroyers filled the Pacific, and she stood at the front of them all. How do you strike back when the enemy seems unstoppable? The answer came from USS Hornet. On April 18, 1942, she launched 16 B-25 bombers toward Tokyo, the Doolittle Raid. It did little physical damage, but it shook Japan's confidence and reignited America's fighting spirit. At Midway, Hornet's aircraft helped bring down the carrier Akagi, but her own fate was sealed during the Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands. Bombs, torpedoes, kamikazes, she absorbed them all. Even when ordered abandoned, she stayed afloat. American torpedoes couldn't sink her. Shells couldn't finish her. Only after 9 Japanese torpedoes struck did the Hornet finally slip beneath the waves. She proved one thing: some ships simply refused to die. The night of November 13, 1942, wasn't a battle. It was a brawl fought in total darkness. USS San Francisco charged into a superior Japanese force at point-blank range. Shells hit so close, sailors could see enemy crewmen illuminated by their own muzzle flashes. Her bridge was obliterated. The admiral killed. Senior officers gone in seconds. Fire tore through her decks. More than 45 direct hits shredded her steel. But the crew refused to yield. Young officers took command. Sailors hauled shells through smoke-choked corridors with nothing but touch to guide them. No one thought she'd survive the night. But at dawn, she was still moving. A survivor later said, "It felt like the ship chose to live. Few ships endured so much and stayed afloat. None did it with more heart." By the final years of W.Y.T.'s, American shipyards were producing giants. None stood taller than USS Iowa. She was fast, 33 knots on a 45,000-ton fortress. She was powerful, 9 16-inch guns capable of leveling coastlines. And she was elegant, sleek enough to run with carriers, strong enough to stand alone. Her guns supported invasions from the Marshalls to Okinawa. Marines said the ground shook when Iowa fired. She became Admiral Halsey's flagship, a perfect match for a commander who fought with speed and aggression. While carriers transformed naval warfare, ships like Iowa delivered the raw force needed to break Japan's final defenses. She was more than a battleship. She was America's steel promise of victory.